Hello and welcome back to the resource file building series with me, your host, Andy Woolley. In this element of research, we're going to look at your competitor keywords. So very much you hear the term is you don't go and try and reinvent the wheel. You basically go out and you steal the keywords from your competitors to have a better insight to what your market is about. And that's the whole essence, is that we can use free and premium software, the likes of Ubersuggest or Semrush, in order to educate us and give us a better idea of who's competing in our market, and more specifically, the keywords that are driving traffic, relevant traffic, I should say, to their particular offering. And in doing so, that's converting through the process on their web pages, because obviously you need them to go somewhere. And from that, then they're making the initial sale. So join me in this video where we will look at competitor keywords, and we're simply just going to literally pull them all in. Whether they're relevant or not, we will worry about that in the next part, where we start implementing, where we go through the process of refining those keywords to identify the ones that have the most relevance to the ones that don't. But that's the whole point of the resource file. We let that do the heavy lifting while we just accumulate the data. So join me in this video as we start to discover competitor keywords. Okay, welcome back to the next step within our research section. So in the last section, we looked at competitors. We need to look back into competitors now to analyze one or two that we can use to go forward and actually pull out competitor keywords by using Semrush. You can also use the free version of Ubersuggest as well. There are many other different tools. Plus you can do your due diligence just by gleaning physically or manually off their website. But Semrush is the one I use. If you haven't got a copy, there is an affiliate link on the website or in the link below with this video. So please click on that and you can use it for 7 days free. Okay, so let's jump back into our competitors. What we need to do is a little bit of filtering to identify some that really matter. And this is the power of Excel in play. So we've got, as you can see here, if we zoom all the way to the bottom, we have pulled in, just by our few terms, already 26,500 different competitors there. Now, some of them will be direct, some indirect, but this is where we use the competitor reliance that builds out how close they are to our particular entity. So if we go for the largest number to the smallest, this means that they are closer to what our intent is than obviously being further away or off on a tangent, i.e. like the data science or the data analytics. We want everything related to data storytelling. And already, just skimming over the first column, you can see the frequency of the word data. So I'm kind of thinking that makes sense. Maybe we should just do a simple search for the word story within data. And already you can see it's coming back. But data story is already in there. You know, there's many versions there. I don't know. Should I go with that or should I just go straight with data? Data seems a bit more obvious. I'm going to go with that one. Now it's pruning it down because, bearing in mind, most people like to be near to an exact match domain or as close to it as possible because it specifies the intent. So therefore, choosing one or two of these is going to make a big difference. So for the sake of the video, we're just going to take a handful here and we're going to look at them. And you can see, obviously, we have different countries in here. So let's take the first one, datastory.ch. We're going to dump this into Semrush. And let's see what this churns back to us. So let's see if it's got, it's a low authority score, so it's not that popular. They've only got a little bit of traffic, but somehow they're ranking there for some rhyme and reason. Let's have a look. So again, one keyword, data story. It's not worth our time and effort. So again, we could easily discourage those. Now we can't do that for obviously the 26,500 ones we've got there. Yeah, it's saying here one common keyword. Right, so let's do a little bit of due diligence here. Let's also look for the ones with the largest keywords. We could do a multiple search. And this is the power of Excel. You can do search on a search to refine in order to get what we're after. Now we're looking for ones that have got high keywords, reasonable competitor relevance to us, but they've also got the word data in there. So we know we're closer to the intent, plus we can see they've got reasonable traffic here. And again, I could, look for the highest volume here as well. which keeps narrowing it down, narrowing it down. Now we're coming on to the government one. I really don't want that one, to be honest, so I'm going to backtrack purely because I think that will take us slightly off tangent. I'm happy with what we've got there. Let's look at the first one, which is towards data science. Again, that might be redundant, but it's pointing in the right direction, and that's a good sign. So let's see what sort of keywords. Wow, 120,000 keywords it ranks for. It's definitely been on the increase. Let's have a look at the positions, which give us an idea. That's in the UK. You can see it's a global brand. It's bringing in traffic from multiple countries. Types of data towards data science. So Minecraft, Java. Okay, some of these are not going to be relevant. The first one definitely is. Data structures definitely is relevant. So again, yeah, I kind of like this. I think there's nothing wrong here. There'll be enough that I can pull it out and I can see the frequency of what they're ranking for within their SERPs for the rich snippet, the number of links they've got. They've obviously got questions in the people also ask. They've got knowledge panels, and they've also got videos on it as well. So let's export this. And again, it's a simple process. We export it, open it up, and we take this information now, select the first column, link all the way down to the bottom, and shift and copy. And let's bring that across into the competitor one. Move this out of the way. And I don't go in the first one, and I'll tell you for why. I also haven't got the date stamp, which is that one, and I haven't got the SERP feature there. So I'll just type those in, date stamp and SERP features, which is information we can interpret later on. But I also type in the domain name that I had there. Now I tend to type this out wrong, the URL. So towards data science. And the reason being is it gives me the ability to include or disclude later on certain companies. Towards data science. And then, as you can see, there's a box in the bottom right hand corner. My box turns to a plus. If I double click that, fills it all the way to the bottom of the text, like so. And therefore we've brought in their 10,000 keywords. I couldn't do the 120,000, but because we've got the ones that are built around the traffic and the most relevant, those are the ones it's going to give me first and foremost. Let's jump back into the competitors. The next one, the data school, that looks very interesting. Let's bring that one in and have a look under Semrush. And normally this sort of process, I would do dozens of competitors to get a good picture of the marketplace and the competitors. And within this process, you can see correlation matrix that's relevant, user input for Tableau, which is obviously one of the pieces of software. Sheet swapping use parameter Tableau, yeah. Unit chart, horizontal, vertical. So some of these are relevant terms, quite technical, but they are relevant to the actual data storing process, which is what I teach. And again, there's 3,800 keywords we can bring out. Fantastic. Open it up again and literally select the first column and the last field in the columns and copy. And we just bring that across. Not jump on the competitors, jump on the keywords all the way to the bottom and put that in there. And again, bring the title across, the data school. And this is the process just going forward. And we do as many as we feel we want to, because in time, we have now the keywords. We have a history on those keywords. So looking at some of the keywords there, we can then use our filtering. We can see the position they're scoring on the internet, their previous position, which gives us an idea of whether they're moving up, moving down, how much search volume in a month, so therefore how relevant they are to the particular audience, how hard to rank for, the CPC cost or cost per click. Again, I need to make sure that is in GP because it gives it a bit more relevance, but I don't worry too much that. I'm more concerned with the intent, and therefore is there traffic driving it, because then I can go off, and when I come to doing my paid ads, I will look more closely at the CPC cost and then assign what I can for the budget I've got to work with. But also the other area, and hence the reason the column is titled orange, I also look for the relevance of traffic. So that gives me an idea of really what's connecting with the target audience. So let's just do one or two more, just get an idea. Data flare training, yeah, kind of like that. That sounds like it's right down my street. It's doing training very similar to what I'm about. Again, let's put the domain into Semrush. And you can see it's a very repetitive process, but this due diligence really gives you the insight. So 19,000 keywords, we can only pull out the 10, but you can see the traffic there. They're bringing it, what does mean in Python? Okay, bit of an unusual phrase there. But again, the connection between Python and data is quite strong, and that's something that is relevant. I'm not seeing something that really jumps off the page there. But again, whilst we can interrogate keywords here and look for data or storytelling, which, yeah, let's do that. I'm going to use Excel to do it, but let's have a look. So let's see if it's there, and if it is, then how many keywords will be relevant. So none. So they're not actually ranked for data storytelling. Okay, let's just do storytelling and see if that's relevant. So this filtering now gives me an idea. Again, none. So realistically then, this probably isn't as relevant as I thought it is. Their intent is actually teaching people Python. And unfortunately, the domain name is a misnomer. So yeah, you know what? Let's just disclude those. We're not going to bother. Playfair data, data pine towards data science, the data school, which we've already done. But see the frequency? Now, the rhyme and reason that this one and that one have come in is purely because we did multiple keywords, and that's fine. What we will do, and I'm not doing it for this video, it's for the later video, is we will dedupe through this process, and that way then we will be able to find things a lot easier. The Australian version's there as well. You can see there is a frequency, you know, the data science, stitch data. So you know what, I'm going to change direction here, and I'm going to select all. I'm going to go back to data storytelling, and I'm going to see if there's some specific companies that are talking about it. And there's nothing there, but that's because we're looking for an exact match. Let's close that gap down and see if that makes a difference. Doesn't, which means that there obviously is nothing with that title in there, which doesn't surprise me. So let's see if data story is one, and again, nothing is coming up. So let's just go for story instead. Right, here we are. Now we've got something. And again, it could be that they've got a domain name that, you know, kind of references what they do, but likely they could have a domain name that doesn't, and therefore that's not as obvious. Now, I know Tableau was one, and we've seen that earlier. We also seen a few others within the acquiring of these competitors. So the story one, right, let's go with that. We've done the competitive relevance. Let's bring that highest to lowest again. And yeah, you can see data story. The story mill, story by data. Now that sounds a lot more promising. Copy that. It's organic traffic's not big on it, nor's the keywords, and that's not good. I'll tell you what, let's look for some of the largest by keywords. This story, okay, that's quite interesting. Let's have a look at that one. And again, there is no fine art here, unless of course you know your exact competitors. I do not. But I'm going to show you an alternative way now in a minute. And you can see driving limits, Liam Gallagher haircut. No, this is relevant. Unfortunately, this is probably a very generic website, hence the reason the number of keywords. And it just happens that they have one caveat regarding data and story. So let's jump in. Let's find an alternative way, and we can use statistical confidence by double checking this in two ways. So the story mill's in there. You can see that one. Okay. Well, let's go that one. Now we've seen that briefly here. We've seen it. If we do the story mill, let's see the select all and story mill. Search it. There it is. Perfect. And yeah, it's saying there's a reasonable number of keywords. Traffic's not too bad. It's not a big player, but it's not a bad one either. So let's use that one. Let's see if it's on the money. And if it's on the money, then really that's what we want, because these are the silos that we're going to build in this niche market. And it is quite niche at the moment. So I'm not expecting to find loads and loads of competitors for it. It's starting to open up. So Looking at the keywords here, 148. I'd rather have 148 relevant than a million. Brand storytelling workshop. Yeah, that's spot on the money. Business storytelling. Yep, spot on the money. Storytelling and business card. Yeah, now this is much more impactful, far more relevant. Give me this all day. So I'm going to pull this one out, and this is definitely one to include in the keywords. So let's pull all this data across. And this is all we're going to do literally for the next couple of hours, is literally just work through these list of competitors. And this is called the story mill. And again, double click it in the right hand corner from the arrow, and that fills all the way to the bottom. But now we're starting to get the keywords that matter. And this is the alternative method I mentioned earlier, is if we come back into Google and I looked at that. Now, if I put in the story mill, I can either go by the term and look for other relevant ones, like the narrative science, that's another one, and I could put that into Semrush. Nugget, what is data storytelling? That's a great one. Let's open that up and let's steal that one as well. Again, go by domain, not by the URL, purely because you'll get any contextual relevance as well through the keywords. So they might have multiple articles on there, but you're only pulling out one. Not smart. Data story, yes, fantastic. Data story and data journalism, good connection there. Maybe that's something to explore. Data storing with data, yes. Data storing synonym, yes. Simple stories about sharing. Narrative journalism definition, you can see already there's a variable there that's a modifier. Data story Coursera, so that's obviously a platform for selling data story. So yeah, again, very relevant. They got 58 terms in there, and this is great. This is probably more pertinent to my brand in the sense that I'm looking for smaller numbers of relevant keywords that can deliver the right traffic to me. So again, let's copy all that information across, stick it into there, and just double check we've got the right URL again. Got it. It was Nugget. Nugget. Jump back in and Nugget. And again, double click that. The arrow. And this is all I'm going to do is keep building up this picture. Now, just going back into one of the variations that we talked about earlier. Yes, I could look for the different domains that are relevant to it, but I could also take the story mill. If I type that in there, the story mill, because that was really relevant, you can see they obviously come up because the domain name is unique. But now you've got probably competitors relevant to them within their sector. And as you can see, they dominate for an awful lot in this area, which is great. But if I look down here on the right-hand side, sometimes they give you related industries or companies that are in a similar sort of field. Unfortunately, there's none there, but that, that's not a bad thing. Let's see if Nugget give us anything. Again, there's Nuggets, perfect, yes, nice. They've got a GMB there, but unfortunately, again, nothing related there. But you can see modifiers that might take you in a different tangent. Again, there's no right or wrong here. You're just doing your due diligence by peering around the corners all the time to see if there's another avenue that could present yourself with more information. So let's just do one more in our competitor list. And we've got the story mill. Let's jump back in there. Let's see if data journalism was there. And it's not, but whether journalism is there in its own, it is. Okay, so it does make you wonder then if some of these obviously haven't been pulled through from the data storytelling are relevant. Now I kind of know that they'll be in a different way, but look at that one, datajournalism.com. That is too good to ignore, and that is one that we should be looking at, definitely through Semrush. And it is literally this power of discovery when you're doing this process that I find quite fun and enlightening, but also quite enlightening for both me, because obviously my brand, but then for clients, when you suddenly present them with a whole raft of new ways that they could be ranking for, like this data journalism, because that's basically telling a story, data visualization journalism, and there's some reasonable traffic coming here, as you can see in the search volumes. you know. So data obviously is a generic term, but could go in many different ways. But data visualization in journalism, specific. I could write articles and stuff like this, which is obviously about the data storytelling, data story ideas. Now I'm starting to see other content clusters there, or subcategories that build out my topic. So again, we just pull out the due diligence here, the 440 keywords. We'll put those in there, and I'm also going to add in that extra keyword of data journalism into my keyword ratio at the front, because I know it's got value. So let's just put that in there. We know the website was called Data Journalism. Ooh, let me just spell it right. Bear with. Sorry. Slippy fingers. Data Journalism, and double click on that. That one's done. Let's jump to the front. I'm gonna add that in there, and then this is how this sort of back and forth, you start basically building out a sequence of silos here, or content clusters, to give you the analogy. Topics, which are your categories, and your subcategories. You start working out the structure of our website, which is something we will talk about later on in silos and clusters there, which inform you of how your website architecture should be, that when somebody is looking at one topic, it's related into another topic, and by doing so, you suddenly start opening up a new audience that it may not be 100% of interest to them, but it is of interest to them. And that intent grows your new audience. And this power of discovery really enlightens you to where you can rank for more keywords and more traffic, and obviously put more money on the bottom line, whichever that may be. But this is the beauty of the resource file, which you can't do in any sort of online SEO tool. You can sort of see it, but you can't correlate that data. And this is where Excel, pulling it into a template like this, really brings it into its own. So we'll move into the next part after this, which is looking at the keywords, backlinks, and text. But again, we might part those for the moment. So join me in the next part, where we actually start looking at the silos and the clusters.